Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into something incredibly sobering today, but absolutely crucial to understand. We're going to break down the exact sequence of events that led to the tragic crash of American Airlines Flight 1420 in Little Rock, Arkansas. We'll be looking closely at the data, the timelines, and the mechanical systems to figure out exactly how a routine flight escalated into a total catastrophe.
Right off the bat, I want you to put yourself inside the dark, storm-battered cockpit of an MD-82 as it descends into Little Rock. Outside the windshield, heavy rain is just hammering the glass. Every few seconds, lightning violently tears through the sky, lighting up the cockpit in these sudden blinding flashes, and the aircraft is getting heavily buffeted from side to side by severe crosswinds. Amidst the eerie green glow of the weather radar and all this tense radio chatter, First Officer Michael Original stares at the screen and asks his captain a really vital question. The storm cells are rapidly closing. Should we go around?
But despite all these massive warning signs, on June 1st, 1999, Captain Richard Bushman makes a fateful decision. He decides to continue the approach rather than going around, noting that an aborted landing would just cost them more time. So they descend deeper into this violent thunderstorm. Inside the cockpit, the instruments look totally normal. Everything seems under control, but you have to ask yourself, what single critical error was traveling with this aircraft, completely unnoticed by the crew, that would ultimately seal their fate? Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. A race against the clock. Time pressure and fatigue. To really grasp how things went so completely wrong at midnight, we actually have to rewind all the way back to the morning. These guys have been on the clock since 10:30 a.m. in Chicago. They flew to Salt Lake City, then to Dallas-Fort Worth, arriving delayed because of bad weather at 8:10 p.m. Now here is the crucial piece of the puzzle. Pilots have a strict, mandatory 14-hour duty limit. It's there for safety. For Captain Bushman and First Officer Original, that clock was going to expire at exactly 11:16 p.m. Because their original plane to Little Rock was delayed, First Officer Original actually had to demand a replacement MD-82 in Dallas, basically telling dispatch they needed a plane right that second or the flight would be canceled. And that brings us to a psychological phenomenon that is super well known in aviation. It's called get-there-itis. Now keep in mind, both men were highly experienced pros. Captain Bushman had over 5,000 hours flying just the MD-80 series alone. He knew this aircraft inside and out. But you got fatigue from a 13-plus hour day, combined with this desperate push to beat the clock and just get the passengers to Little Rock, and it began to subtly cloud their judgment. The goal of simply finishing the day started to overshadow objective risk assessment. Moving on to Part 2, the anatomy of disaster, a mechanical error.
So the replacement aircraft they got in Dallas was a 16-year-old MD-82. Walk through this landing sequence with me because it is so important. When a plane lands, flaps on the wings called ground spoilers pop up to instantly kill aerodynamic lift. This forces the heavy weight of the aircraft down onto the landing gear, allowing the wheels to grip the tarmac so the brakes become 100% effective. Without these spoilers armed, a plane on a wet runway simply will not stop. It's going to hydroplane just like a car on pure ice, and it loses up to 80% of its braking power. Keep this firmly in the back of your mind as we go forward.
About 14 minutes after taking off from Dallas in a massive rush, the crew spots something on their weather radar. Right in the middle of these terrifying red and yellow blobs of a huge thunderstorm system, they see a thin, clear-looking corridor pointing straight toward the Little Rock Airport. They actually jokingly called this gap the bowling alley. They figured, hey, if we can just thread the needle through this bowling alley, we'll be totally fine. It gave them this tragic, false sense of confidence, a feeling of California cool, as Original joked on the cockpit voice recorder. Now, what's really interesting about this next part, Part 3, into the bowling alley, a closing trap. Well, that bowling alley quickly turned into a literal trap, as their safety margins completely evaporated. Look at these numbers for a second. The reported crosswind at the airport was 28 knots, with massive gusts up to 44. For this specific aircraft, the absolute max crosswind limit for a dry runway is 30 knots. So at 28 knots, they are right on the razor's edge. But here is the terrifying part. If the runway is wet, company policy drops that limit all the way down to just 20 knots. At this point in the approach, the crew still thought the runway was dry, but the rain was just about to unleash. Then, at 11:39 p.m., air traffic control issues a severe wind shear alert. The winds were shifting around so violently that it forced the crew to abandon their current approach and switch to runway 4R just to get a headwind. But this runway switch meant they had to fly a wide, looping turn completely away from the airport to line back up. Because weather radar only points forward, the moment they turned away, they totally lost sight of the massive storm cell that was rapidly intensifying directly over the exact runway they were trying to land on.
And then, at 11:46 p.m., we get this catastrophic miscommunication. The controller reported the wind direction as 350 degrees at 30 knots. That meant a severe, highly dangerous crosswind pushing hard against the side of the plane. But First Officer O'Riggle accidentally read it back as 030 degrees, just a single digit out of place. But 030 degrees meant a favorable headwind. This tiny, uncorrected slip-up completely warped their situational awareness right in the most critical minutes of the flight. They literally thought the wind was helping them, when in fact it was fighting them the whole way down.
Which leads us directly into part 4, a chain of fatal errors, the Swiss cheese model. They're descending into a chaotic, incredibly high workload environment, and they become textbook victims of the Swiss cheese model of accidents, where multiple tiny failures line up perfectly to create a disaster. Look at how this sequence unfolds. Heavy rain demands all their physical attention. Then, suddenly, an ATC wind shear alert blares over the radio, momentarily interrupting their standard landing checklist. When they go back to it, amidst the exhaustion and the noise, they skip an item. The single most important lever, the one to arm those ground spoilers, is completely missed.
11:50 p.m. The aircraft makes a really hard touchdown on runway 4R. "We're down," Origel says. But literally 1 second later, a terrifying realization hits him. "We're sliding." Because those spoilers weren't armed, they never deployed, the wing's lift wasn't destroyed, and the plane's weight didn't settle onto the tires. This 80,000-pound aircraft was now hydroplaning down a soaking wet runway at 160 kilometers per hour. Captain Bushman desperately pulled the reverse thrusters and fought the controls, but with an immense crosswind blowing them sideways and zero braking power, they were just completely at the mercy of momentum.
Part 5, Impact and Aftermath, Running Out of Runway. The runway is just rapidly vanishing in front of them. 800 meters, 400 meters, 200 meters. The sequence of the impact was absolutely brutal. The MD-82 overran the runway, smashing violently right through the airport's ILS antenna structure. But it didn't stop there. It then plunged down a steep 7.5-meter embankment. Finally, a massive steel support structure for the emergency lighting system sliced directly into the nose and the left side of the fuselage. The impact was so severe that the aircraft literally shattered into 3 pieces, and in the pitch blackness of the storm, a fire broke out immediately.
In the sheer chaos of smoke, jagged metal, and freezing rain, 11 people tragically lost their lives. That included Captain Richard Bushman, who died on impact, and 10 passengers who succumbed to the crash or the smoke. 110 other people were injured, many severely, as they desperately scrambled to get out of the fractured fuselage in the dark.
The survival and rescue phase was just agonizing. First Officer Rigel survived, but he was trapped in his seat inside the crushed cockpit with a leg broken in 3 places. Surrounded by wreckage in the absolute dark, he actually managed to pull out his personal cell phone. He called his wife first, and then he called American Airlines operations to report the crash himself. It took 18 agonizing minutes for rescue teams to reach them. Because visibility was near zero, fire trucks initially rushed to the completely wrong end of the runway, leaving terrified passengers to find their own way out through gaps in the burning metal.
So, what does this all mean for us? Flight 1420 wasn't brought down by a massive engine failure or a sudden missing wing. It was brought down by the compound interest of minor human errors, a weather delay, a ticking 14-hour clock, a 1-digit miscommunication, an interrupted checklist, and a single missed lever. It really forces us to ask, how do we protect our complex, high-stakes systems from the inevitable reality of human fatigue and pressure? It's a sobering reminder of our own fragility and the incredible responsibility we carry when operating the complex machines of the modern world. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.